All right, everyone, welcome back to the show. Today, we're tackling a topic that has sparked more wait-a-minute moments and late-night internet rabbit holes than almost any other. We're talking about the 1969 moon landing, or more specifically, the claim that it never actually happened.
Oh, RJ, you've opened Pandora's box. I feel like this is one of those conversations where you instantly know who's on which side of the fence. We landed. No, we didn't.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Even after all these decades, with mountains of evidence, people still cling to the idea that it was all an elaborate hoax. What's the core argument for those who believe it was faked?
The core argument, Zoey, usually boils down to the space race. The Cold War, the Soviets were ahead, Sputnik, Gagarin. The U.S. needed a win, a big one. And what's bigger than planting a flag on the moon? So, the theory goes, NASA, with the U.S. government's backing, just couldn't risk failure. So they faked it. A soundstage, some clever camera work, and voila, instant national triumph.
And it makes for a great story, right? The ultimate underdog move, but also the ultimate deception. I mean, think about it from a purely cinematic perspective. It's brilliant. And then you get into the evidence that proponents cite, like the flag.
The waving flag, the classic. It's always one of the first points brought up. How can it wave in a vacuum?
Exactly. You see it rippling, and your mind immediately goes, wind! But there's no wind on the moon. It's a very compelling visual for someone looking for inconsistencies.
And it makes sense logically. If you don't know the actual explanation, that's a huge red flag, pun intended, that something's off.
But the explanation is pretty straightforward. The flag wasn't just on a pole, it had a telescopic pole along the top to make it fly outward, so it would appear to be waving. It was designed to look unfurled even in the vacuum. It was crumpled when they set it up, which made it look like it was rippling. It's not a mystery, it's just basic engineering for presentation.
See, Zoe's already debunking things. But what about the lack of stars in the photos? I've heard that one a lot too. If they're in space, surrounded by billions of stars, why don't we see any in the pictures?
That's a good point. When I first heard that, I was like, yeah, why aren't there stars? You'd expect them to be everywhere, super bright.
Again, it comes down to basic photography. The lunar surface and the astronauts in their suits were incredibly brightly lit by the sun. The cameras used had to have very fast shutter speeds and small apertures to avoid overexposing the brightly lit foreground. Stars, even in space, are comparatively dim. The exposure settings needed to capture the details on the lunar surface simply weren't long enough to capture the faint light from distant stars. It's like trying to take a picture of stars at night in a brightly lit city street. You won't see them.
You always have an answer, Zoe. But it's true, when you hear the technical explanation, it does make sense. It's just not as exciting as they forgot to paint the stars on the backdrop.
Right? Conspiracy theories are inherently more dramatic. And then there's the whole shadows argument. People point out that shadows in the photos aren't parallel, which supposedly proves multiple light sources, like studio lights, not just the sun.
That one's a bit of an optical illusion, or rather, a misunderstanding of perspective. On Earth, we're used to seeing parallel shadows on flat surfaces, but the lunar landscape isn't flat, it's rugged, with craters, hills, and uneven terrain. When shadows fall across irregular surfaces, they can appear to converge or diverge due to perspective, even when cast by a single, distant light source like the sun. It's the same reason railroad tracks appear to meet in the distance.
Okay, I'm hearing a lot of logic, but we haven't even touched on the big one, the director, Stanley Kubrick. How did he get roped into this whole thing?
Kubrick. This is where it gets really juicy for the film buffs. The theory goes that after making 2001: A Space Odyssey in 1968, Kubrick had basically mastered special effects for simulating space. So, the U.S. government, needing someone with that expertise, allegedly approached him to direct the fake moon landing footage.
And the evidence for this? I've heard some wild stuff, like hidden messages in his later films.
Absolutely. People pore over films like The Shining for clues. For example, Danny wears an Apollo 11 sweater. Some interpret the hexagonal pattern on the carpet as the launch pad. Even the famous Room 237 is said to be a reference to the distance to the moon, though the actual distance is way more than 237 miles. It's all about finding patterns, whether they're there or not.
It's a classic case of pareidolia, isn't it? Our brains are wired to find patterns and connections, even in random data. And when you're already convinced of a conspiracy, every little detail can be twisted to fit the narrative. Kubrick was a genius, no doubt, and 2001 was groundbreaking, but the leap from that to directing a top-secret government hoax is just enormous.
Enormous and frankly hilarious in a way. I mean, imagine the pitch meeting. Stanley, we need you to fake the greatest event in human history. And he's like, sure, but I want creative control over the shadows.
Right? And I'll put a subtle hint in my next film, just for fun. But on a more serious note, what makes this theory so sticky? Why do people gravitate towards it, even when confronted with logical explanations?
I think it taps into a few deep psychological needs. There's a certain thrill in feeling like you're in on a secret, that you see through the deception that everyone else is falling for. It gives people a sense of intellectual superiority. Plus, it plays into a distrust of authority, which has always been present in society but has certainly intensified in recent decades.
That's a great point. It's not just about the moon, it's about not trusting the man. The government, NASA, the media, they're all in on it. And if they could lie about something this big, what else are they lying about?
Exactly. And let's not forget the sheer spectacle. The idea of a global hoax involving thousands of people kept secret for decades. It's almost a testament to human ingenuity in its own twisted way. It's like a Hollywood blockbuster written in real life.
But the scale of that alleged cover-up is precisely what makes it so improbable. You'd need thousands of people involved: engineers, scientists, astronauts, film crew, government officials, even their families. The idea that not a single person has ever definitively blown the whistle with undeniable proof is just statistically implausible. People talk.
And secrets leak, especially big ones, especially over 50 years.
Unless everyone involved was either paid off tremendously or eliminated, which takes it to an even darker place, obviously.
Right, which then requires an even larger, more complex conspiracy to cover up the original one. It's a house of cards. And honestly, the actual evidence for the moon landing is overwhelming. We're not just talking about blurry photos, we're talking about moon rocks. Hundreds of pounds of them, brought back by Apollo missions, studied by scientists worldwide. Their composition is unique, distinct from Earth rocks, and matches meteorites known to be from the moon.
Moon rocks are pretty hard to fake, I'll give you that.
Well, some might argue they were just Martian rocks, or something. You know how it goes with deep-seated beliefs.
And what about the retroreflectors? The Apollo missions left mirrors on the moon's surface. Scientists on Earth can still bounce lasers off these mirrors to measure the precise distance to the moon. You can't fake a laser returning from a specific spot on the moon.
Okay, that's a pretty strong argument. It's active, verifiable proof, not just static photos. Lasers don't lie. Unless the lasers are in on it too.
Haha, now you're just being silly, RJ. But it's true, once you dig into the actual scientific evidence, it becomes incredibly difficult to sustain the hoax theory without resorting to even more outlandish explanations. Like the Soviets. Wouldn't they have been the first to expose the hoax if it were true? They were in a direct race, and it would have been a massive propaganda victory for them.
Exactly. The Soviet Union had incredibly sophisticated tracking capabilities. They would have known if Apollo 11 hadn't reached the moon. They monitored the entire mission. Their silence on the matter speaks volumes. They never challenged the authenticity of the landings.
That's a very compelling point, Ivy. The Cold War context actually works against the hoax theory when you consider the Soviet perspective. They would have ripped it apart if they had any evidence.
It's almost poetic, isn't it? The very competition that supposedly fueled the lie is also one of the strongest arguments for the truth. It's a real mind-bender.
And ultimately, it diminishes one of humanity's greatest achievements. The Apollo program was an incredible feat of engineering, scientific ingenuity, and human courage. To dismiss it as a fake undermines the thousands of dedicated individuals who worked tirelessly, and in many cases risked their lives to make it happen.
It certainly does. I think part of the fascination with these theories also comes from the sheer scale of the unknown that space represents. It's so vast, so alien, that our minds sometimes struggle to grasp the reality of it, making extraordinary claims seem almost plausible.
And for some, it might just be more fun to believe in a grand conspiracy than a straightforward, albeit incredible, scientific endeavor. It adds a layer of mystery to life, even if it's unfounded.
I think it's important to differentiate between healthy skepticism and outright denial of verifiable facts. Asking questions is crucial for scientific progress, but when you're presented with overwhelming evidence and still choose to disbelieve, that's where critical thinking can go awry.
Well said, Zoey. So, whether you believe Neil Armstrong's giant leap for mankind was real or a masterclass in cinematic trickery, there's no denying the lasting impact and enduring conversation that the moon landing has sparked. It's a story that continues to capture our imaginations.
It truly is. And it makes you wonder what future generations will question about our current advancements. Maybe we'll be discussing the Mars rover hoax in 50 years.
Let's hope not, Ivy. But it's a testament to the human spirit of inquiry, even if it sometimes leads us down unconventional paths. Thanks for a great discussion, guys.
Absolutely. And thank you all for tuning in. We love hearing your thoughts on these kinds of topics, so make sure to leave your comments and let us know what you think about the moon landing. Was it real? Was it faked? You decide. We'll catch you next time.